For the last few years on the first day of school, I've skipped all of the standard first day of school procedures and put a picture up on my smartboard for my sophomore students to analyze. I typically use Norman Rockwell's painting, The Dugout, because there are numerous details to discuss. I start off by asking my students to write down all of the details they see, big or little. I give them a few minutes and then we go around the room and I ask for the details. If they give me inferences, for example, Chicago is losing, I ask, well, how do you know? To get them to give me a detail, like the Chicago players are frowning. It's a good activity because students of every level can participate. Even my ESL students can give me a detail, like the dugout is green or the baseball players have dirty knees. In our next step, I encourage them to make the inferences based on the details, and then I lead them into a soapstone activity. Soapstone stands for speaker, occasion, audience, purpose, subject, and tone. Finally, we move on to determining the theme of the picture. After we practice reading the visual image, we move on to reading and analyzing short stories, and then to expository text, because students need to be career and college ready by being proficient in reading complex texts independently in a variety of content areas. Smaldino, Lowther, Russell, and Mims, 190. This is a skill that students gradually learn. They will not jump from picking out details to determining the message without guidance. So how do we as educators and librarians ensure students comprehend the intended message of the resources? Smaldino, Lowther, Russell, and Mims, 189. All students bring different experiences and perceptions to a situation. We cannot assume that one student's experience is the same as the student sitting next to them. Because of the prior knowledge a student brings, we must recognize that the message may be interpreted differently from culture to culture. Cooper, 15. Consequently, my picture activity that I mentioned before wouldn't work if I just asked my students from the beginning, what is the theme of this picture? If they didn't have any experience being on a sports team or had never been to Boston and seen the Green Monster, they possibly could become so absorbed in the small details of the picture, Cooper, 16, that they would spend too much time making sense out of what they were seeing and not be able to understand the message itself. Smaldino, Lowther, Russell, and Mims, 197. One of the tools to assist teachers and librarians that was mentioned in the textbook is a text-to-speech program called Kurzweil that provides students with a multimedia approach by presenting printed or electronic text with additional visual and audio cues. It can also read the internet. Smaldino, Lowther, Russell, and Mims, 192. This would be especially beneficial to our lower level learners who struggle to read. Instead of spending valuable time becoming frustrated by attempting to decode the words, they can spend more time figuring out the message. Therefore, scaffolding is a key component for educators to teach students how to read challenging texts, both print and visual. As suggested in Chapter 9, we should guide students to apply strategies when reading particularly challenging texts. Smaldino, Lowther, Russell, and Mims, 190. I typically use the I do, we do, you do method of modeling when teaching. By modeling first, students can see what my thinking process looks like as I work through a text. I then place students into groups and they examine a second piece together. The third step encourages students to complete the last step independently. In the article supporting visual literacy in the School Library Media Center, Cooper asserts that children will find it easier to interpret images if we give them some context from which to pull, but will need scaffolded teaching to interpret images beyond their physical environment. Cooper, 15. Although the vignettes in the article are examples of primary students, the idea is still the same. We need to guide our students to look deeper than the surface of text and visuals. If they don't have the context to discuss a picture, they won't be able to tell me what it's about. However, if they are taught how to read the visual or text, they will be able to communicate it using a format different from the original. Cooper, 16. If we want our students to be text literate, they must be able to locate, understand, and use informational text in order to synthesize the information to formulate a well-rounded response that shows they comprehend the material. Smaldino, Lowther, Russell, and Mims, 189. Since I and many other teachers at the secondary level already incorporate some type of visual literacy in their classrooms, how can the librarian be a support to them? As a librarian, how can I teach a lesson that scaffolds what the teacher is using in his or her classroom to encourage the comprehension of more difficult texts and visuals? Thank you.